Thank you. So how's everyone doing today? You good? All right, so I'm Tyler, and this is my brother Alex, and as you said, we're documentary filmmakers and the hosts of a new television series called The Water Brothers.
And as you might have guessed, our show's all about water. But the basic idea is my brother and I go on trips all around the world to explore the biggest water-related environmental challenges that we face in our world today.
And our goal is to change the way people think about and consume water, because really it's water that is the connecting element in all the big environmental challenges we face in the world today, whether it's climate change, the loss of biodiversity, food, water, or energy shortages.
And, many of us know that water is the driving force of life on Earth. But the reality is that water is rarely being used or thought of as the most precious resource in the world. And we want to help change that way of thinking. And my brother and I here, we've gone on these trips to share the stories, and a lot of it has to do with the power of one. But we're not here today just to talk about our show, but to talk about how what we do connects to how we can make efforts and changes at the local level to initiate global change.
So the power of one, what this sort of goes towards the thing that we believe in, which is one world water. And what does one world water mean? Well, at the heart of it, it means that we have this one planet, and it's an anomaly in our universe because we have this most amazing gift, water. And we have this water because our planet lies perfect distance from the sun, where we can get water in all three of its forms: solid, liquid, and gas. Yes, there are other planets in our universe that have water, but they're either too far or too close from the sun to really support any life. But how this water actually got to our planet is still somewhat of a mystery. There's a couple theories, but the two big ones are, one, that it emerged from rocks when the Earth first formed over about 4.5 billion years ago. And the other one is that a comet hit the Earth about 3 billion years ago with enough ice on it to fill all our oceans with water. But whether that our water on this planet came from a comet or emerged from rocks, the point is that water on this planet is extremely old. And the water that you guys used to brush your teeth this morning is the same water that dinosaurs drank millions and millions of years ago. And the water used to take a shower was probably once dinosaur pee.
And we don't want to discourage you from brushing your teeth or taking showers. But the basic idea is that water is really old, and it's been here for billions of years, and we're not really going to be getting any more of it. So we know water's really old, but how much do we actually have? Well, if you've ever taken a stroll along Lake Ontario or been lucky enough to swim in the ocean, you'd probably think we have a lot of water. And scientists have tried to figure out how much water we actually have. And the best estimate we have so far is that we have about 1.33 billion cubic kilometers of water. It sounds like a lot, but I think this one image behind me right now sums up how much water we actually have quite nicely. And right now you'll see an image of the Earth, and to its right, a sphere of water. That little sphere represents all the water on our Earth, in our oceans, in all forms. But if you look closely, you'll see another little tiny dot, a tiny sphere of water further to the right. That little dot represents all the fresh water on our planet. But what this image doesn't show is how much of that fresh water is actually accessible to humans. And it's a startling figure, because less than 1% of that tiny little dot is accessible fresh water in our rivers, lakes, streams, and frozen in glaciers that are all accessible to us. So that's the first theme of One World Water. Our planet is an anomaly in the universe, where among billions and billions of planets, there may only be a handful that have water and can support life. And even though we have this water and this precious gift, we have a lot less than we think, especially as our global population has just passed 7 billion people. And there's no signs of it slowing down. So we're going to have to come to terms with the fact that we have not as much water as we think, and we all depend on the same finite resource.
So One World Water is more than just how much water we actually have, or rather, how little we have. It's about how we manage our water resources. And, you'll often hear this term that we're in a world water crisis right now. But what does that really mean? Well, it means a lot of things. And it would be hard to describe to you all the challenges we face. But I think it's important that we talk about just a few of the big ones that we're facing in the world today. And the first one is over 1 billion people lack access to clean, safe drinking water. And I think this probably represents the biggest social development failure of our time, as it's the #1 cause of illness in the world, are waterborne diseases. Over half of all the hospital beds in the world today are filled with people who are suffering from a waterborne illness. It's kind of crazy. And the second one is the loss of biodiversity that's happening on our planet right now, and it's just staggering. There's the rate of extinction we're experiencing on the planet right now is greater to or equal to all the mass extinction events that have ever happened in Earth's history. And a lot of those are taking place in our oceans and our freshwater habitats. And today we're experiencing there's been 30% of all commercial fish stocks in our ocean today have disappeared. And if we keep fishing the oceans at the rate we're doing right now, in 40 years, by 2050, it's estimated that all commercial fish stocks will be gone.
So it's not that the fish have disappeared, it's that we can no longer fish them commercially enough to support ourselves. So where did all the fish go? Well, we ate them all. And that's the big problem. But really, when you look deeper into the issue, it's not eating seafood that's the problem. It's the types of fish and seafood that we choose to eat and the methods we use to catch them that are causing the biggest problems in the world right now. Fishing methods like bottom trawling and long lining, which are two of the biggest, most popular commercial fishing methods. And for bottom trawling, for example, they drag huge nets along the ocean floor, sweeping up everything in its path. And long lining, where there's one fishing line can be dozens and dozens of kilometers long and have 1,000 hooks on it. They don't discriminate between what they intend to catch and what ends up being caught. So there's a huge amount of bycatch where many fish are pulled up onto ships and they die and they're discarded back into the sea. And we also have a situation where the types of fish we choose to eat are actually not the best ones we should be going after. Because many of the fish we like to eat, like sharks or in shark fin soup, or tuna and grouper and swordfish, these are the top marine predators. These are the regulators of the marine environment. It's the same as if we all decided to eat lions and grizzly bears for dinner, because these are the regulators of their land environment, lions and grizzly bears, as the same as a tuna or a shark. So we need to rethink about the seafood we're eating. But in reality, this one world water concept is about how we eat everything and how it all relates back to water. Because 70% of all of our freshwater resources go towards agriculture and the cultivation of livestock. So we need to make more conscious decisions at the supermarket about the food that we like to eat and knowing where it's grown and where it comes from. And one of the best ways to explain this about why it matters in terms of water resources is this concept known as virtual water or hidden water. And it basically just shows what the water impact is of everything we eat. For example, it takes 70 liters of water to produce one apple, to grow an apple, 200 liters of water to produce a glass of milk, and 2,400 liters of water to produce one average-sized hamburger. So why does virtual water matter? Well, it just helps put things in perspective of how much water it really takes to actually produce everything we eat. And we know water cannot be destroyed, but it sure can become polluted with pesticides and chemicals and manure as well. So we can pollute water, and the impact of what we eat can have a long-standing impact on our water resources.
And there's one phenomenon that's going on in the world today that is affecting our water supply and our oceans more so than anything else. And as you probably guessed, it's climate change. And hopefully we all know and recognize now that climate change is not a myth, it's real. And that humans probably have the biggest impact on this. And that as we release more greenhouse gases into our atmosphere, the Earth is going to warm in some places, but it's actually also surprisingly going to cool down some other places. And that's why we like to use the word climate change and not global warming, because it's not going to just warm places. It's going to have a big effect on our whole environment.
So why does climate change matter to water? Well, it matters a whole lot because the ways that humans will actually experience climate change and suffer from these changes is largely based on the ways that a warming and changing planet will affect our water resources in the places we live and grow food. Climate change matters for water because melting glaciers will affect the water supply for over 3 billion people on this planet who get part of their daily drinking water from a glacially fed river or river system. Climate change matters because the melting ice caps of Greenland and Antarctica threaten to raise sea levels and flood 100 major cities in the next 100 years. And climate change matters for water because as we emit more carbon into the atmosphere, that same carbon is being absorbed back into our oceans and changing the properties of seawater. We're actually changing the chemical condition of our ocean and making it more acidic and making it harder for things to grow. And climate change matters for water because our entire civilization relies on somewhat predictable supplies of water in the places that we've decided to live and grow food. And it matters because a warming planet could mean more droughts, more floods, and more extreme weather events. Really, climate change matters to it, and a lot of it comes back to the power of one, because when you're talking about a giant global problem like climate change, there's not one single solution that's going to make everything better. Everyone on an individual level is going to have to make changes in their daily life as well.
And basically, we just have to make a conscious effort to really change our daily lives and affect the way that all our water is being used.
So, where do we go from here? Where does the power of one come into this whole idea of one world water, this concept that we've come to believe in? Well, it matters a whole lot because individuals can make daily changes in their lives, and we've seen inspirational stories no matter where we've gone. And for example, in California, we've seen how just one city, Orange County, decided to recycle their wastewater and put it back into their drinking water supply to solve a local water issue. And that's where the whole concept of the power of one comes in. It's not like anyone out there can come up with these technologies, but the solution to these global problems start on a local level. There's not one global solution to all these. So in California, when they decided to recycle their wastewater, they actually didn't solve a global water shortage, but it didn't bring extra water to Asia. But when Singapore decided to use this exact same technology, they were able to solve their own local water problem. And there's individual leaders as well, like the late Wangari Maathai, who decided to plant trees to fight desertification and drought in her home country. Now, this helped fight a local water issue, but it wasn't until the movement went global and 200 million more trees were planted that her one act of inspiration became a global phenomenon to fight what was a water issue, even though it was just planting trees. And in one city, it can be a citywide example as well. Community grassroots organizations that in Charlottetown, PEI, where the first Canadian ban on bottled water was started. Now, this did little to prevent plastic waste all over the world, but it inspired similar movements in cities all around the world. So this one action, this one grassroots action in just one city, inspired cities and college campuses across the world to ban bottled water where they had clean public drinking water instead.
So how do we take it to the next level and inspire change like all these other people? What if our country realized that we only have this one planet, this one world of water, and we all decided to change the way we consume water and food and the way we produce energy?
How would that change the world, and who would follow our lead? That's why the power of one matters, because we all have an opportunity to change the way we eat food, the way we drink water, and the way we produce emissions. And a lot of it starts at home. Everyone here, we don't need one single leader to solve it all for us. The solutions to problems like climate change and local water shortages, it all starts at home because the water problems we face are all very local. We don't face just one singular world water crisis or one singular environmental crisis. They're all very localized issues. So we need local leaders. We need people coming from the grassroots and from in individual cities. It starts at home. So if we're able to do that, here in Canada, who would follow our lead and how would that change the world? Thank you.